The Real Build is about building better culture, leaders, visionaries, community to better serve the client. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder, and I'm here to showcase real business owners building companies with integrity, trust, and a commitment to making a positive impact. Join us as we explore their stories, insights, and strategies for success. With that being said, welcome to The Real Build.
You leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember.
Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder, and today I got another amazing guest, a great friend of mine, part of Warriors for Christ. He's a man of God, Air Force veteran. Thank you for your service, obviously, first and foremost. Appreciate that. And owner of IB Logistics. He's also a personal trainer, and he has a vision, which we'll get into this a little bit today. A vision is to alleviate poverty. He's also part of the Arte Syndicate, been a member for many years like myself. So looking forward to having you on. Chris Arzberger, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing, brother?
Mr. Bill, thanks a lot for having me on. I feel so humbled to be here, and it is great to finally make this happen. And I just can't wait to see what the Holy Spirit leads in this great conversation that I know we're going to have. It's awesome.
I think it's going to be great, man. I'm excited. Yes, we finally made this happen with your and I's crazy schedules. So this is going to be great. I know you're going to bring a lot of value. But before we get started, too, let's find out who is Chris Arzberger.
Well, you know, when people ask me that question and you're out doing different things, people ask, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm just a man trying to be more like Jesus each day. And as you mentioned, I do have a mission to use the gifts that God has given me to help transform people's minds, body, and spirit to alleviate all forms of poverty, not just financial poverty, but faith poverty, relationship poverty, and financial health poverty. And God has definitely opened doors to do that. And he's allowed me to have certain businesses to take those earthly resources and deploy them for the kingdom purposes. And as you walk with God, you pray about these things and he opens and shuts doors if you're slow enough to see those. And that's my biggest problem. I'm a very high strung, fast moving guy. But as I age, I just turned 58. This slowness, I'll call it godly slowness, has been just a blessing to me, where I've been able to actually take some time during each day. And I don't know when that time happens, but in the middle of the day, there's time where I just slow down for about 20, 25 minutes and get reconnected to God. And that has been such an amazing holy habit, I'll call it, but it's still a struggle. And I've been doing it now probably 2 years for the majority of my time, but there's been days where I haven't done it. And it really has wrecked my day, I'll say, So yeah, that's about me. I'm really trying to be a man of God and trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus and deploy the gifts he's given us. And I go back several years ago when I first joined Arte in 2019, thinking it was all about business. And God soon told me, no, you're a missionary right here. So.
I want to go into that a little bit too, because obviously this podcast is dedicated to business, doing business the right way. I got people that listen, a lot of construction people that listen to this. Obviously, that's my profession. And, I've talked to past guests about, giving your business to God, right? And Ryan Austin is one of them. He's been on that, and he's been kind of he's a great friend of ours and he's been really helped me in that aspect of, not always worrying so much about what's to come with business, because a lot of people struggle with that. I think this past year, especially, a lot of people were struggling with that and just being like, this is happening for a reason. God's doing this for a reason so that you can go here. As long as you keep working and you keep, if you're just sitting around, okay, God's really not going to help you, I don't think, But like, talk about that a little bit. Like, you just said with Arte, you thought it was more business, but then you realize that God's like, no, it's about me. That's why you're doing this. So talk about that a little bit of how we as business professionals can give the business more to God and not let those negative thoughts take over.
I think it's just a matter of knowing that everything we have comes from God, even our business. A lot of times we think, oh, we have this education or we have this skill or wow, we met these people, but God orchestrated all of those. He put you in those situations to have those skills, to have that education, to have that timing and stuff like that. So I try to make sure that I'm going to tell everybody, like part of when I hire people, I talk about my faith right up front that you're coming into a Christian company and that kind seeks to glorify God. So I'm not scared about it. Now, I'm an owner of the company. I have a partner, but he's not a believer. So, but he respects what I do and he sees those things and he slowly sees changes. And that's one of my prayers is that he accepts Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And I just know that my walk can help that. But we have people in our company that are of like Muslim faith, Hindu faith, and me just being very open about my faith brings us closer because we have discussions about their gods and my God, and they invite me to some of their religious ceremonies and things like that. And I think it's not just about, you know, giving your business and not worrying about the financial side and things like that, that God's going to orchestrate the right things at the right time, but it's also about talking about God to your employees and trying to know their needs and pray. Like we have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday stand up for about 20, 30 minutes. And I'll say, hey, who needs prayer requests? What's going on? People share their burdens during those calls before we actually dive into the business of what's going on. So I think that's about for me giving it over to God. And it was so good when someone spoke that, right? I think God gives us the resources exactly what we needed. And this person who I really respected said, have you ever turned your business over to God? And I'm like, wow, I've never thought about doing that. So I did that commitment one time and been re-emphasizing that whenever I think I sometimes take the wheel.
Mm, mm. So what does it look like, to give your business over to God? What was that moment for you when that happened?
Yeah.
How did
So,
that feel?
so for me, it was really getting on my knees and praying and saying, God, I think I've been running this business for my whole since 1999, but I want to give this over to you, Jesus. I want you to be the CEO. I want you to work through me. I want you to show me what things you want me to do. Um, Show me what things are important to you, and as you walk, I say my vision become a little bit more like Jesus. Things got so different because before I was really walking with Jesus, trying to become a little bit more like him, you know, you can't compartmentalize your life. People think you can, but you can't. So Jesus has taken over, and my business life was very much about the numbers and what, very numbers based and what product based. Well, how can we give this great product and stuff like that? Yeah, we had relationships, but it really wasn't about relationships first. And now it's flipped and it is about relationships first. And everything flows down because it's relationships first and because God, I think, honors that. That's like an eternal pursuit. I always try to think, like in our business, what can we do in our business that is for eternity and that we can actually take to heaven? you know? And when you flip it and you talk about relationships and get to know people really deeply, because Jesus knows every single thing about us. And I think when I look at Jesus, you know, the woman at the well from scripture, he knew everything about her past lovers, but he didn't condemn her. So I see how he loves her so much, how we are to love other people. And you got to do that in the business world. And that's very hard to do in the business world because Christianity, faith isn't really looked upon very well, especially I'm in the Department of Defense space. And there's been cycles up and down where, you can't pray, sometimes it's all right, all these different things. But yeah, you're still being called to show God in some way. And for me, it was really about relationships, really dive into relationships. So a lot of times for me as a business owner, I'm doing things to forge those relationships with the government points of contact that I have, whether it be going to some of their function, a lot of their functions, different things like that, team building exercises, going into work really early and meeting with them before the day gets going on, staying later, those types of things. But it's really about relationship management, which is obviously a wonderful sound principle. But you go look at Jesus, that's what he was about, and
Yeah.
people say, self-development, arte, all these things. I'm like, if you really study Jesus, that's the foundation of all these great organizations. They're all founded on biblical principles. So
Yeah, yeah, no, that's right. And the one thing I started thinking about too is in business, like I've really started evaluating like everything that I do and what happens too and how God works in those areas as well. Like for example, like I just had a potential client go with another builder and I really started evaluating because I put in a lot of work to build a relationship. The lady loved me. She was like, "Your communication was unbelievable." I even helped them get their lot that they were going to build on, giving them advice there and not taking a commission on it. They had another realtor, but still just helping them kind of get the right property as well. And at the end of it, all of a sudden I get the phone call that we decided to go with somebody else. And I asked her why. And there I couldn't really get a reason besides price maybe or there was something else too. Oh, they had a different floor plan or something. I'm a custom builder. I can do any floor plan you want.
right.
And so I really was down on myself about that situation. This is just popping in my head as you were talking. And then I started thinking, I'm like, maybe God doesn't want me to build these people a house for a reason. There's a reason behind this that this is all taking place. It's not like we're not busy right now anyway, and there's other opportunities, other things that he's probably trying to push me towards to do too. And there's a reason behind, and as you start kind of evaluating the reason, because your mind wants to go with all those negative aspects of what did I do wrong? What's it this? Maybe the husband didn't like me. Maybe this. What could I, which is good. You want to know what you can do better for the next time, but there's a reason behind it because I put in a lot of work to try and get that job. So, I mean, talk about that a little bit. I want your perspective on that of how God works in that aspect of your business because a lot of people they wouldn't think like, maybe God doesn't want me to work with these people. They would just be probably pissed off and probably talk crap about the other builder that got the job. So talk about that a little bit. I'm curious what you think.
And that's really, really good awareness because I totally believe that. I totally believe when we bid on contracts, if we don't win that contract, it's it's what God ordained, and there's something He wants us to learn from that standpoint, or He wants us to win something better. He has something better planned for us that would, if we won that contract, it would have took up resources because my company's really small. We have 15 people, but we really have this niche in Department of Defense doing supply chain. And whenever we win a contract, we won't go bid on another contract until we fully execute that contract to the standard that we have set for our company so that we never lose that contract ever, right? Our goal is once we win a contract, we win the recompetes. And
Mm-hmm.
we won this one contract since 1999. We've never ever lost it because we execute it so good. There's another contract that we won for like 15 years, and now we're getting sole source awards. So if we were to win this one contract I'm talking about, we had a team of contractors together, and it was definitely was a God orchestrated thing because by the end of that contract, working together, putting together our bid, I led our whole entire team in a prayer before we went into the actual evaluation, which was an online question and answer thing. So it was like so amazing that Department of Defense contractors came together and we actually was praying by the end of this 4 or 5 months effort. And we end up losing this bid, but this bid was big. It would have took our company to probably a 50-person company. And we lost it. But I'm like, okay, we lost this, but what did you want me to learn from this? First off, we prayed with all these other companies. We have relationships with these other companies that we didn't have before. And maybe that taking that would have taken us away from other things because right after that, some other big work happened on those contracts that we already had. They
Mm-hmm.
grew and grew and grew. And those are our bread and those are our, I call them our cash cows because they constantly just keep recompeting, but when they recompete, they grow because we take so much more workload that the government wants to give to us because of the performance. So you have to really take that perspective that, you know, in your business, things are happening because God's orchestrating them and you're trying to either learn from them or he's got some better plan for you. Or, like you said, the person that the contract you're going to have is just going to be too, you know, just not the right person. I remember we won this one contract and our client was just impossible to please. It was like, I was like, I don't even want to have this contract anymore. You're always getting thrown under the bus, always, trying to carry and feed. No matter what you did, you would not be able to satisfy this customer. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And you mentioned you're in construction, and one of the things that I just started recently doing is real estate flips and renovations and stuff with another guy from Arte. And we're on about our 20th one. And that's like all God ordained, but some of the things you mentioned there in like, we put the house up for market or we're going to rent it. We're praying for the right people,
Mm.
and we're trying to really serve the underserved community, so ex-cons, people in poverty, those types of things.
Awesome.
That's where my heart has been for the last several years, is trying to alleviate that housing problem that there seems to be. Because a lot of the people I try to coach in poverty, there are a lot of them in the Section 8 homes and with slum landlords and don't fix things. And it's just a horrible environment for them to live in. So that's what I've been on my heart lately. So I have been getting into the rehab space and dealing with different workers and stuff like that. Now, my partner, Russ Miller, he's the one that really is the operations guy. But when I talk to him every single day, we go up see the houses and stuff like that. And it's definitely a learning experience. So I can feel for perhaps some of the problems you have.
It's definitely a tough business. It's definitely a lot of babysitting and making sure. I mean, all the contractors out there know. I mean, to get perfection in a house, it takes a lot of great management, a lot of like involvement from the contractor, a lot of building relationships and communication too, which is huge. For us, that's what we sell ourselves on too, is how can we communicate better? I mean, we've had a good software that we've been using for a while, and now we're about to transition over, and I know to a new software that's even better, that allows us to communicate even more. Do I really want to do this transition? No, because I know how hard it's going to be to retrain everybody into using a new software. But it's just something with the company that we need to do too, and that's just how we are. You even said Jesus build relationships. That was his main goal was to build relationships with people too, and that's what we should be as business people. How can we build relationships better, right? And that's what I'm always trying to think as a builder, because I have a lot of competition. And I'm like, what am I doing better than, or what can I do better increasingly than my competition? And then when you see your competition copy you too, instead of being mad about it, take it as a compliment, because there's a lot of my competition copying me in a lot of ways, and they're doing video now. I've done video stuff for like 5 years now. Now my competition's probably doing it after, or they're all doing it after, talking crap about me doing it, which is funny to me too. So my next move is just to keep, get out of the people pile. I'm big on that. John Maxwell talks about the people pile and getting yourself out of it. Like, what can I do to separate myself in a consistent basis that nobody else is doing? And people are going to think I'm crazy, and I think that's what Jesus did too. A lot of people thought he was crazy, but he always separated himself from the outside noise, the outside crowd. He's the son of God, of course. But I love what you were talking about there. Go into what I was just talking about though, like getting yourself out of that people pile. I know you probably have a lot to say on this too, because you've ran successful company. I mean, you do personal training, you do all these different things. Talk about that a little bit and your separation.
I really think, I've heard people say, "What is your secret sauce?" And for me, to sort of get myself separated from the people pile, it's really about in my main company, so IB Logistics, it's about making lifelong employees
Mm,
and lifelong customers. And the employees is making sure that my vision for IB Logistics is big enough to fit them and their visions in all time. So it's a lot of communication with them and giving them opportunities and finding out where they want to go. Case in point, um, we're on the back end of me and my partner. He's about 4 years older than me. We're on the back end of our careers in IB Logistics. So we are creating a new company, a minority owned company from two people from within our own company because in sharing the vision with them, they want to have a long lasting legacy in their family. One's from India and one's from Colombia. And family is very important to both those, more so. I mean, the Hindu family it's unfortunate. It seems more important than I see here in America. I wish we could get back to that,
mhm,
taking care of your family. So we're creating a minority owned company, which will probably, I told him I can dedicate 10 years to grow that company. That company then will buy IB Logistics. So those are type things, creative things. What new things could you do for your employees or your customers? Like I'd say lifelong customers, like we keep on winning our contracts over and over again because you have to just pour into them to separate yourself from other contractors. One of the things in Department of Defense contracting, contractors like to win bids and then any new workload, they'll go, oh, that's a scope change. I need to increase the bid, all these kinds of things. Well, me and my partner, one of our core values is that we will always do the work to the best of our ability, and the customer determines what they want us, what they would like us to do. So we'll have a scope, but our scope is such that we can throw things in, and the scope is big enough that we can throw it in without anybody
mm,
protesting us, and we'll do that job and then we'll get that job on the next time we recompete the contract. So our customers have never heard the word no from us. We'll always say, if you want that done, we can do that. But they realize the list of priorities just keep growing, and they're gonna we per every 2 weeks we meet with them to prioritize the list. What do you want us to work on? What do you want us to work on? So some of the stuff doesn't get priority for a while until we work out their newer ones. So right now they just within the last month they say, hey, we would really like you guys to take over this other tool that another command is operating. So now we've done the due diligence, what the requirements are, and we're gonna give them a milestone, but it's gonna be at the expense of some of the other things they want. But for us, we're gonna be able to have another opportunity, another tool to envelop into our main tool suite. And then when we recompete this contract, which is a year away, that new subsumption is going to generate more revenue for us.
mm.
And like the amount of times I've heard the government people say I've never worked with a contractor like you guys is like numerous times. And that's really what you're looking for. You're really looking for that kind of endorsement. So much so that our customers from the Air Force are the ones that actually went and got us our customers in all the other services. We didn't spend any marketing. They actually went over that you guys
Awesome.
have to hire these guys to do the same thing for what they're doing for the Air Force.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right, that's so big right there too, because I think a lot of businesses struggle with that, especially if, let's start with the life building lifelong employees too. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that constantly are it's it's just constantly like going through employees. But to build a business, and this took me a little, I've learned this over the past few years, importance of, you know, letting your employees kind of be a part of it more, do more, make some decisions about the business, not so much micromanaging them too, letting them come to you when they need something as well as a CEO. But just selling them the vision too of where we're going to go, and how important that vision is on a consistent basis so they don't just feel stuck. And I think a lot of businesses just have employees, the employees feel stuck. They get a raise maybe once a year, if they even get a raise, just depending on the business and the sales aspect of it. And that's it without selling them the true vision. And I'm constantly telling my guys and girls that are with us, like, this is where we're going, this is where you're going to be. We just got the Naples office now. This is what's going to come out of that moving forward. You might be up there once we get the first build, and that's your area. And then you're going to have superintendents under you. You're going to do the selections up there, blah, blah. I'm constantly like, just because I see it in my head, I'm a visionary type person. And doing that, it gives them confidence to keep going. So what you said there is so spot on. And then the lifelong customer part of it too, like that goes back to what I was just saying, is like figuring out what the best ways and things that I can do to have lifelong customers that actually like, there's a lot of builders out there. They don't have lifelong customers. They get the job done. That's it. The customers are pissed off about something. Warranty issues happen. The builder never answers his phone. You know how many times I've heard that? Because I deal with a lot of second home builder or second home clients that built up north. Their experience up north was horrible, or they had a good experience and they expect the same. It's either or, but I've dealt with a lot of people that had bad experiences, and it's almost like I have to break through that wall to get them out of their mind that this is going to be a better experience too. And it's because it's a trust thing. You got to build that trust back, and when the trust has been broken, it's very hard to build back, even though you're a different person. You know what I mean? And that's what I've had to figure out how to do. And by doing the right things and constantly taking ownership for our faults as a builder too. Like if we mess up, we take ownership for it. We pay for it. We don't blame the customer or point the finger at the sub. If it was on us, it's on us. If it's on the sub, it's on subcontractor, it's on the subcontractor. If it's on the client and they made a mistake, it's on the client. So, and it's just having those discussions too and open communication, like you've talked about. And that's what builds those lifelong relationships of every client we have. Like Liz and I are supposed to go to dinner with a couple of clients next weekend. Then we have other clients that are coming back in town for the holidays that they want to go have drinks with us somewhere. And it's just building those constant, it's friendships. We're literally friends with the people we built these houses for, too.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I was going to ask you about that because we've been about, I think March of 25 will be 2 years, which we've been in this real estate place where we're, you know, purchasing homes, rehabbing, either selling or renting them. And we have the two things. We have the people that are buying the houses or renting from us. How can we pour into them? What kinds of things can we do unique that other people aren't doing? And then our employees, what can we do for our employees? And typically, you know, a lot of times we have these subcontracting crews that work for us, but I want to even pour into them
Mm,
and make sure that they are always taken care of. Like we say, okay, listen, for you, we'll always have a house for you. You don't ever have to worry about going somewhere else. You can just commit to us. Let's form that strategic partnership that will always be there for you. So as we grow, you grow, and maybe we'll provide, leadership courses for you guys and pour into you that way. And some of our people that bought the houses, I told Russ, I said, I'd like to have like appreciation dinners where everybody comes and we host a big party for everybody in who's bought our
that's
community or
good. Yeah.
renting or buying from us. We'll do a community thing. We'll have some guest speakers there. And then also, since we rehabbed your house, we know all your appliances. Call us for your appliance needs. Call us for your lawn serve. Call us for all that. So we're trying to do that. We haven't done that, but that's where we've talked about having all this integration. So we are their one-stop shopping, and we do it at a high level that would separate us from other people
Dude,
in
yeah.
the house flipping. I'll call it the house flipping market.
No, you'd 100% separate yourself because nobody else, I think, in the flipping market's doing that because it's profit. It's constant, let's move,
Yeah,
let's move, let's move in that
yeah,
in that industry. And like with us too, like the client appreciation, we're doing a client appreciation party this year. My wife's planning it. And Brian Hess, who also,
yeah.
Brian told me, he's like, no matter what you do, he goes, as a company, he goes, always do it like a VIP event. And he goes, don't cheapen it up. Don't, he goes, take them to some bar and have drinks or whatever. He goes, do it VIP style. He goes, because these people are going to remember that. they're going to talk about it. They're going to tell their friends about it. So I was like, you're right. So my wife's looking at the Hilton and Marriott on Marco Island and stuff like that. But we're going to be doing that. Like the stuff, the constant follow-ups with clients is huge. Whoever buys those houses too. Think about the flipping world. There's nobody that's flipping a house, calling the client after the fact and
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, how's everything going? Is there anything we can help you with? Is there problems? Like if there's a problem and you have a service, like that's what I do with our estate management, right? We have an estate management branch, or I do personally, where I do home watch when these people are gone half the year. I have about 12 of them I manage, and I go on a Saturday, I walk the house, make sure everything's all right. If there's a problem, I set it up for them where I'm like, okay, the AC's not running right. I'll call my AC guy and get them there in a day. Hurricane hits, a roof tile falls off. I can get my roofer there real quick. So these people like that type of service where you can take care of them fast. So if you can implement that into what you're already doing, would be massive. Even just like we're going to be doing like on the projects moving forward, just checking in on the clients every couple of weeks and being like, hey, how's the build going in your opinion? What can we be doing better? What do you like so far? Just get their opinions, write it down so that and it helps us. A lot of people don't like being critiqued. A lot of people don't like people telling them, the negatives, but the negatives are what you need to actually be a better company and learn from it. And you know that too. But I think your mindset on it is really good because there's nothing else like what you're going to be doing. The subcontractor stuff is like with our subs, we have a lot of very loyal subs, built a lot of great relationships over the years where they take care of us, but we pay them. When they're done, the job's done, they did a good job, we pay them. If they didn't, we hold money. That's what you have to do until they are done. And we've had a lot of great subs that still love working for us. We've had bad ones that were like, nope, we'll never work with you again. That's trial and error and what you guys are doing too. But to build those relationships, like you said, and go into their offices and actually show that you care, that's rare because I mean a lot of the contractors they're working with, it's get in and out, get out of here, I'll pay you.
Yeah,
So
it's um like I said, God orchestrates everything. And
yeah,
we bought this one house. It was a $20,000 crack house, literally crack paraphernalia in it, and
wow,
you could see through the wall, the outside walls, you could see daylight. Next to the house was a minister, and we got to know the minister, and he runs this awakenings ministry, which is really not a Orthodox church because it deals with ex-cons and deals with people have done it all time, and people who are addicted to drugs and all these different things. So I got to meet him through this process, got to know him, and as I got to know him, he's like, "Would you mind perhaps teaching our congregation life skills?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I got the spiritual side, and we got donations so we can help them in other areas as far as maybe some homeless type things. But they really don't have hope because they don't see of how they can get out of this situation of not having jobs because a lot of their records are preventing them from having jobs and things like that. And how can you give them other life skills?" So I said, "Yeah, I can definitely do that." So I wanted my wife to do that with me because I really feel like we work good as a team. So I brought her up and introduced, and we had to pray over the matter. So we end up doing this. But as we're doing this and we're giving them a vision, giving them a mission, and work on core values with them and what kind of standards they have and different things like that, then these people, as they're progressing through that and hitting different milestones, we are then taking them into our Solid Foundation Living Company and giving them jobs. Now, we've probably done about 7 people. 6 of the 7 have washed back out, and we had to get rid of them. But one person has stuck, and she's amazing, and she just keeps growing and growing and growing, and she is widening her vision and her faith and stuff like that. So it's like so cool to see how God orchestrated all that stuff
yeah,
so that we can now, besides us teaching this life skills class, we are also providing an employment path for them to come work for us, you know, and we can pour into them and just build that relationship. And in that process, God's given us other subcontracting crews that are more legit than the ones we've had before. So now it's a matter of, oh, our core value, we can really execute because these great subcontracting crews that we're finding now are already at that level. And now we can get rid of the ones that are really not pulling their weight. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's and giving people a second chance too, a second chance to be able to you know, be something, be on a contracting staff too, and oh, I think I lost. There you are. Be on a,
Yeah.
have that opportunity to work for you guys and be subcontractors too. There's somebody you should um or I can connect you with. I don't know if you've ever talked to him. He's part of the contractor group I'm part of, Keith Calloway Jr. They're big. They own a paving company and they're big on second chance employees, and they've done a really, really good job with it. I'll have to connect you to him for sure because that's exactly kind of what you just said too, that they're doing something similar with as well. So I'll have to connect you guys because he's been in Warriors for Christ off and on as well. But that's kind of their whole model as far as hiring people, is trying to hire second chance people that were convicts and have felonies and stuff, and kind of just help them get into a new life. Because that's part of the problem, is like these guys get out of prison and they have nowhere to go but back to what they were doing before, because they don't have the opportunities that you're giving them. And there's not a lot of people presenting that. They see, oh, this guy's a felon. He's going to probably just steal from my business, and he's never going to be something. But these people really want to try and get out and be something and make money, but they have no opportunities to make money. So where do they go to try and survive? They go back to doing the bad things they were doing. So I think that's awesome, man, that you guys are building what you're building and doing that with the rehab thing, and then also kind of targeting people in need of houses like that too, that are
Yeah.
not, that are just, they're done well, they're livable. That's so huge because this country needs that, I think, more than ever, because there's a lot of poverty areas that need renovations, need help, and nobody's doing it. Nobody's going in there and touching anything. So that's huge. That's huge
Yeah.
what you're doing.
God put that on my heart because of working with Silk from 2018. I've been working with people in poverty. And I've seen how housing is just a horrible thing for them. One of the girls I was coaching, her door got ripped off and it never got replaced. She didn't have a
Wow.
front door for like weeks, And I'm just like, okay, we need to solve these problems. So you're right. Our house flips are, we're anything $150,000 and under. So people first time homes, people in poverty or ready to make the move out of Section 8 housing. These are affordable homes and are really good. My partner Russ has a vision. He walks in and he's probably like you. He sees something, and I don't see that at all. I don't have that gift at all. And it's just amazing how great he turns his house into something amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. The product just sells itself. But I know God's orchestrating all the people that come through the house and who's going to buy it. And there's been so many stories that even us, we can do owner financing for them on some if they can't have the whole loan, and or whatever. So many unique things happen in each one of those houses that God is orchestrating. It's so cool.
Go back. Let's go back and rewind back to what you talked about with like transforming faith, relationships, financial poverty. Let's highlight each one of those and how you're doing that too, because obviously, like, we just talked about the housing side of things too, and I know you're doing so much more, and I don't want to skip over that. So talk about that a little bit.
So literally the faith is trying to everything I do, right? Just trying to, because I touch so many people that are non-believers, in these different organizations. These different organizations, like this organization called Thrive Together, which goes through my church, which is where we actually coach people in these forms of poverty. That is their thing. They're the ones that taught me about it. When I thought poverty, I was like, oh, poverty, financial poverty. But then when I went and joined this organization, they taught me, no, it's faith poverty, relationship
I
poverty,
see.
health
Yeah.
poverty. We're here to really help everybody. I'm like, wow, to open up a lot of doorways to really see. And I look at myself. I've had those types of poverty. I've had relationship poverty. I've had health poverty sometimes. I've had, so I can relate to that. Even I remember going back. I when I first got out of the Air Force, I wanted to open up gyms all in airports, and I went all in, and I ran up a high debt, trying to do that. And unfortunately, I went in with the wrong partners, so it didn't really work out. But it's funny that I've talked to Brad and Jonathan Hogerboom about it, and they're like, dude, he's like, let's do this, So I'm like, it's still in my heart to do that because people who are busy in travel know that an airport would be a great place to work out.
That's
So
true.
anyway,
Yeah.
I've been doing some of those things, but I think the faith poverty, just showing your faith and sharing your faith, it's about giving people hope and people in poverty, no one has ever believed in those people.
Hmm.
So no one's ever come alongside and believed that they are worthwhile, that they are creating God's image, and that you have great things and great gifts to give back to this world, and that's what that Thrive Together organization has been about, is just showing people that Jesus loves you and that there's hope in the world. And then in that Thrive Together, we have actually blocks of instruction about health, how to do both physical health and mental health, how to do relationships, how to do what is faith talk. So we dive into all these different things. We have a faith and finance class which runs for 12 weeks that we've partnered with a local credit union, that if the people come through and they do the classes and part of it is saving money on a regular basis, that River Valley Credit Union will match grants to them so they can come out of a class and earn an extra like $500 of like 6 weeks worth of work, and that's like for them, that's like $500 to them is so much worth it, for it adds so much more value to them, even though I still respect a dollar bill, you know. So that it's like the different organizations that God has put us in to show those different things. And same with this class that we are teaching of the Awakenings is a 14-week, 14-session class. And we're going to go down and dive through faith. We're going to dive through finances. We're going to dive through relationships. We're going to dive through service. We're going to dive through all the different pillars of health and things like that, and talk to each person so each person can do their own work on themselves to find out what each one of those things means to them, you know. And I get to do that, through my main company, through Solid Foundation Living, through Faith and Fitness, which is my personal training company where I run a personal training studio and sell supplements and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, that whole company, when me and my wife got married, we decided to open up another company called Jesus is My Change Agent. So we just got done with the logo design and all that kind of stuff and website. So we're going to be transitioning everything over to that. And I've talked to the supplement dealer, the company who I've been sponsored by since 2019, and I've actually made the protein, made the bars, all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
And probably in maybe hopefully a year and a half, 2 years, that I'm going to do my own supplement line. It's going to, and the title is going to be Jesus is My Change Agent. We're going to have Bible verses on protein powder and bars, all that. That's my long-term vision. So we'll see.
That's awesome, brother. I can't wait for that. I'll definitely be a buyer of that too. So
Yeah.
talk about. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, the whole poverty in many aspects too. You really never think of that. Like it's like when you hear poverty, it's like you first said, you think financial struggle. That's what you think, but it is true. There's people have poverty in different ways, whether it's their health, their weight, their if they're dealing with mental health struggles, if they're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with just business poverty. There's just so many different aspects of it, and you're hitting all those aspects, which is amazing too. Um, One thing I wanted to talk to you about too is, the people struggling with mental health, that type of poverty. There's a lot of that in this world today, especially, I mean, these past 4 years of just craziness and chaos, and hopefully the next 4 years isn't as crazy and chaotic, but we shall see with a country that is very divided. But it's um, a lot of prayer needs to happen for this country, and I think it is as well. But the mental health struggle side of things, people battling anxiety on a consistent basis too. I just want you to highlight this because obviously in business, a lot of people struggle with this. They struggle with being anxious constantly. They struggle with just the pressure, there's a lot that you deal with and a lot on your shoulders as a business owner, especially in the construction world. And I want to get your perspective on this as a business owner, as a man of faith. What do you utilize as a man of faith to get rid of that anxiety, to which I think anxiety is the devil putting fear and all that in people's heads. So what are some ways to combat that for some people listening? Because I think that would really help the audience.
Well, first off, we all struggle with that.
Yeah.
At all times that comes up. So, although we might have little tools and things like that to help with that, that still comes up. And for me, it really is about, I mentioned earlier that reset in the middle of the afternoon. When I'm overwhelmed, and I get overwhelmed, there are definitely times, probably a couple of times a week. There's just so much stuff that comes at me,
Yeah.
and I'm overwhelmed to not take that mental break in the middle of the afternoon. And that mental break for me is about really just I lay down on my bed and I try to take all thoughts out of my head and I say, Jesus, what do you want me to learn right now? And Jesus, how can I serve you better? And I'm just going to be quiet and listen to you. So it's not about prayer. I just ask them those two questions. And then when thoughts come into my mind, I take captive those thoughts and ban them out and get back to focusing on Jesus. And that little practice over the last 2.5 years has helped me out so much. There's been times though where I've succumbed to the overwhelmed feelings and the lists that I make, and I haven't done that. But then the days when I have done that, no matter what lists I've had, no matter how overwhelmed it has been, he sends me resources to get done with all the things I needed to do. And it's only God.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that I think has sent to me for the last 2.5 years to have that mental reset during the middle of the day and to get with the Lord. And then the other thing is, just knowing the truth. That Satan doesn't want you to know the truth. Satan wants you to believe all these lies. And when you look at our society, there's a lot of people that their truth is their truth, and it's really not that way. It's the truth. The truth is Jesus. Jesus is the truth. So I tell people just seek that wisdom from God, and because there is objective truth, and it is from God. God's word is it. So I rely on his objective truth, and a lot of his objective truth, when you read the Bible, is so life-giving and positive. Like for he for the Lord knows the plans he has for you plans for to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future, all these different biblical things that you can rely on.
Hmm.
So for me, I'll just try to remember those things. And then I think God reveals himself through creation every moment of the day, through your past history, through other people, and through the truth, the Bible. So I try to think of those things to help me not focus on the anxiety that I'm focused on or anything like that. In case in point, probably about 3 months ago, IRS contacted us, me and my partner, and said, "Oh, we have this huge penalty, and it was a pretty big penalty." And he went immediately off the deep end. "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" And I'm just like, "No, God's got this. This will be resolved. We did nothing wrong. We're just gonna go through our process, hire a lawyer, and it seems like we have a good case and we'll be exonerated. But the two differences of going off the deep end, what we going to do, start marshaling, we're going to sell this, do that, versus just peace. And yeah, I was like, whoa, we got to do some work here. But I knew God going to be in control of those things. And even if things go the opposite way, it's all for a plan and it'll be all right.
I think that that was huge what you said about just taking the time out of the day. I don't think enough people do that to kind of sit and just give your thoughts to God, and take the bad away. I was talking with my wife about this the other night at dinner, and because she's had some anxiety, obviously for many reasons, like and I told her too, because I've heard like 99% of your initial thoughts, in your head are wrong. I mean, they're not correct. And if you actually assess the thought of what is happening and you kind of take a step back and think about, you know, why you're having that thought, kind of like you said, you're laying there, that thought comes in, you toss it out and you give it back to God, right? And that is so crucial. And I don't, because I mean, our brains are running wired all day long, especially in business too. And the thoughts coming in, like the story I told earlier about losing that client. You know how many negative thoughts I had in my head, and I was like, that's not it, that's not it. And I just, assessing the situation, it's God didn't want me to have that client, and I did a lot of stuff to try and win that job, but I didn't win the job. So, you know, uh, running through your mind and those negative thoughts is so crucial, like you said. I love everything. I'm gonna play back what you said and do. I need to do it myself. I need to take that time, and I think Josh was on my podcast recently too, and he talked about dedicating a day a week to just go have some alone time in a spot that is, serene and just
Yeah.
quiet. And
Yeah.
I haven't been doing that. And not a lot of people do that kind of stuff. Not a lot of people take the time, like you just said, and dedicate that time to God. And it needs to be done more to keep our mental clarity at bay. Let's put it that way. So we're not just in this constant chaos as owners of businesses.
Couple things you said. You worked really hard on getting that client and doing a lot of things, but you're always going to do that with everybody, Bill.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. You're going to do, like, the Bible calls us to do all things as if we're working for Jesus Christ for the glory of God. So
Mm,
you're going to do your best no matter what,
yeah.
right? So you're going to lose people no matter what you do, but you're giving your best shot. So
Yeah.
that's what I say. I'm like, I'm going to do my best shot all the time. I'm going to win some and lose some, but God's going to orchestrate all that. It's not like I wouldn't do my best job, you know? So
Amen.
that's just the way it is. So I try to remember that, but it does, like, you do sit there, man, what could I have done different? And the negative thoughts start playing in there. I'm just like, so I just try to strike that away. And yeah, the alone time is key. Sundays, there was a time where I used to work on Sundays. I used to work on Sundays, and then there was a time all along the same time this rest thing came, and I'm like, all right, I got to give Sunday to God, and Sundays are going to be about eternal things, family, relationships, those types of things, going on walks with your family, cooking meals together, all this stuff instead of working and grinding on a Sunday. So it's been that's my recharge, reset day, soul, reviving of my soul that day. Even during the week, I try to do that. I try not to get too out of whack by that afternoon session and stuff like that. But yeah, I try to make sure that God's number one in my life. I try to look at my calendar, make sure that He's number one in my life, even based on my calendar. I know it's not a quantity thing; it's a quality thing more so. But I try to do that because I know my life is so much better when it is that way. And I even tell my wife, I'm like, if I have training someone at 5:45 in the morning in the gym, that means I have to get up like 3:15 so I can get my praise and worship scripture reading to do that, because that sets me up to be a better servant for Christ when I then go train that person. If I just woke up 30, 40 an hour before and I didn't do those other things that gets me in my groove, I'll call it, I wouldn't be I could be, but I know that first, based on where I am, I like doing these things. And my wife she's like, wow, we got married last March, so we just this past Saturday we celebrate 11 months knowing each other. We met on December 8th. There will be a year in December, But she's like, wow, I'm starting to see that all these things you do truly bring an A type plus guy and all the things you do. And if you're not doing those things, I see that you're just a little bit off. I'm like, yep, that's it.
Hmm.
That's exactly how it is. And I just want to be at the top of my game because I think you have to be there because God wants to use you,
Yeah.
for the thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of things you mentioned, it's a blessing that God has given you all these resources and all these gifts, Bill, to put you in this place. So I also try to when all the pressure comes and anxiety comes, I'm like, okay, you, God, are giving me the strength to handle this. You, God, have trained me and equipped me in the past to handle this situation. Right now, it may feel overwhelming, but I know that through this fire, you're going to form a new me, and I'm going to be able to handle this more so in the future. And you're going to grow my capacity to handle more of these things. And I see it happening all the time. And I bet you look back 2, 3 years ago at your life, you probably thought you were maxed out, but now you're even more than that because God has grown your capacity. God has
Yeah.
grown your abilities, whatever that may be. God is working on growing all of us to handle the next thing. So I try to like just dive into that, knowing that I'm blessed to have these overwhelming thoughts because God wants working something in us, and He's given us the gifts to handle those things,
Yeah.
and it does. God won't give you anything you can't handle, right? Well, I do think He does that, but I also think He gives you a little bit more to grow you a little bit more, so you can handle a little bit more. So,
Yeah, I was just about to say what you just said too. God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And I 100% agree with you. He pushes you to that limit, that break point, but he's like, I got you, you'll be all right. You'll get through it, and then you'll be able to go a little bit more, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, because he wants growth. He wants
yeah.
to see the growth in us, and you are right. I mean, 3 years ago, would I expect I'd be where I am today? Absolutely not. Would I expect our company to be where it is today? No. And I'm like, what's next? What can I do next? Like, and being more intentional too, like being more intentional of what that Holy Spirit voice is in your head telling you what you should do too, like going to networking events and doing things that I never really did. I wasn't comfortable meeting new, more meeting new I can meet new people. I meet new people every day, but going to big events and pushing myself even further or getting up on stage and speaking. I hated speaking. And now I've done it twice at two TCS events with Brian Hess. And I joke with him because I remember the first event that I ever went to with him, small audience. He asked me, he goes, "Hey, I want you to do a panel with me, get up on stage." And I told him no because I was so scared to do it. And now I've been up on stage with even bigger crowds twice already with him too. So it's crazy, man, when you push yourself to the limit and what God has in store and you listen and everything you said today, so key in just life. And I do appreciate the anxiety thing because I'm gonna take that right back to my wife too, and tell her to try some of those things as well because I think they will help having that kind of quiet time alone with when the baby's taking a nap too, where she can kind of shut things down will definitely help for sure.
It would definitely be a challenge because when I first started doing it, man, and negative thoughts, the thoughts coming into my head were crazy. It's so much different now. I can virtually, for about 16 minutes, not not have any negative thoughts and just be just listening. And
Yeah.
and during those times, I've heard God talk to me. I've heard Him
Well,
say things, nudge things. I'll get up from that. Also, there'll be something on my phone that I needed information, just crazy things. How God has revealed things about what He wants me to learn or how I can serve Him better.
amazing, brother. Amazing. This has been awesome, Chris. I knew this would be awesome. I'm glad we finally got together too. We'll definitely do it again in the future, brother. Where can people find and connect with you?
You can go on Facebook, Chris Arzberger. You just look me up there, and then killing it 24/7 on Instagram. And then we'll be launching Jesus is My Change Agent. We're calling it Jimca, Jimca for short. Jesus is My Change Agent. So there'll be stuff coming out on that.
Love it, brother. I can't wait to try it too, because I love some protein bars. So yeah, I can't wait to try it. I'll be a buyer. I'll be a customer for sure. So Nah, man, I appreciate you. This was awesome. Thank you again for your time
Thank
today. And
you.
I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this podcast for sure. So, with that being
All right,
said, thank
thanks.
you
Well,
all
we'll do
for
it.
listening. And we really appreciate you guys. So, share, like, share, comment, subscribe, 5-star reviews only, especially after this episode, goes a long way. And we will see you guys on the next episode.